She had no family for Christmas, until a billionaire and his daughters asked, "Will you join us?" Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's go back to our main character. On the west side of the city, Christmas lights blink across apartment windows like tiny, colorful promises. Warm yellows, soft reds, strings of white LEDs wrapped around balconies and stair rails. Laughter leaks out from behind thick curtains, the sound of clinking dishes and Christmas music drifting into the cold December night. But on the third floor of an aging brick building, one window stays mostly dark. No tree, no wreath, just a faint, tired glow from a single lamp. Inside that small one-bedroom apartment, Mara Ellis sits cross-legged on a second-hand couch, her coat still on, her fingers cupped around a chipped white mug of instant cocoa that's already gone lukewarm. The heater rattles in the corner like it is trying its best, but barely keeping up, and a draft sneaks in through a crack by the window, brushing her ankles. She pulls the blanket tighter around her shoulders, even though she knows what really feels cold tonight isn't her skin. It's that hollow space inside her chest that always seems to grow louder in December. Her eyes flick to her phone screen out of habit. No new messages. No missed calls. Nothing. Most people's phones blow up this time of year. Group chats, family photos, too many Merry Christmas texts. Mara's screen is just a gray list, an old voicemail from a collection agency, a promo from the coffee shop chain she used to work at, an unread email about a bill that's overdue again. She sets the phone face down on the coffee table and looks at the tiny digital clock on the microwave in the kitchenette. 6:13 p.m. Christmas Eve. Across the hall, a little boy squeals, "Mom, he brought the presents," and someone shushes him while laughing. A door opens, then closes. Footsteps. The smells of roasted turkey and cinnamon and something sweet drift under her door. Mara swallows, her throat tight. "You're fine," she whispers to herself. "You're okay. It's just another night." But they both know it is not just another night. There was a time when Christmas meant too many people squeezed into one small living room. Her mom burning the rolls every single year, her dad pretending not to cry when they opened the cheap gifts he had worked overtime to afford. There were out-of-tune carols, board games, and someone always knocking over the bowl of popcorn. That whole world disappeared 3 years ago in the glow of orange flames and the smell of smoke. She almost never talks about that night. It feels like if she says it out loud, the last pieces of them will disappear. So instead, she works. Or at least, she did. Until the diner cut her hours. Until the tips weren't enough. Until the rent notice slid under her door with final warning stamped in red across the top. On the low coffee table, among a few crumpled receipts and a jar with less than $10 in loose change, there is one thing that does not fit. A small, pale blue Christmas card with a silver snowflake on the front. It is still in perfect condition, like it has been handled very carefully. No creases, no stains. Mara reaches for it without even thinking, her thumb tracing the raised edges of the snowflake. She has never mailed this card to anyone. She wrote it last year in a moment of weakness, then couldn't bring herself to throw it away. She opens it now. The handwriting inside is small and neat, tilted slightly to the right. "To the family I don't have yet," it begins. Just those first words make her chest ache. She reads on anyway. "Maybe I'll never meet you. Maybe you don't exist. But if you do, I hope one day we'll share Christmas together. I hope there will be too much food and loud laughter, and someone will forget to buy batteries for the toys. I hope, wherever you are, you're safe tonight. And if you're not, maybe someday we'll both find our way home. Love, Mara." A humorless little laugh escapes her. "Yeah," she murmurs, shaking her head. "Real smooth, Mara. Writing letters to imaginary people now." She closes the card and presses. It flaps between her hands like it is something fragile and living. Then she tucks it back into the envelope and slips it into her worn canvas backpack resting by the couch. She always carries it with her, like a secret she is not ready to give up on. Outside, somewhere deeper in the city, church bells begin to ring, soft and distant. Mara stands up and her knees protest. stiff from too many long shifts on her feet and too many nights spent sitting in the same spot. She walks to the window, rubbing a circle in the fogged-up glass with her palm. Down on the street, cars crawl by in the slush. A couple in matching red scarves hurries past, arms linked, their breath puffing out in white clouds. A delivery guy hauls a stack of boxes up the stairs, probably last-minute gifts. Across the street, a family opens their front door, spilling warm light onto the snow. Two little girls in matching pajamas run out onto the porch, squealing about Santa, before their dad calls them back in, laughing. Mara watches until the door closes again, and the porch light glows like a tiny moon in the dark. She rests her forehead lightly against the cold glass. "I'm happy for you," she whispers, almost like a prayer. "Whoever you are, I'm happy you have each other." Her stomach growls in response, reminding her what she does not have, a real meal. She turns away from the window and heads to the kitchenette. Inside the cabinet, there is one can of soup, half a sleeve of saltine crackers, and a pack of instant noodles. She pulls out the noodles and fills a small pot with tap water from the sink. The faucet sputters before the stream evens out. When the water starts to boil on the tiny electric burner, steam fogs up the cheap cabinets, and Mara closes her eyes for a second, pretending it is something better, something richer. Gourmet Christmas dinner, she jokes softly to herself. 5-star dining, table for one. She knows she should feel bitter, angry, jealous, but what she mostly feels is tired. Bone deep, like every part of her has been quietly holding on for too long. She drops the noodles into the water and steps back, leaning her hip against the counter. On the counter beside the stove, her phone buzzes. Once, making her heart jolt. She grabs it quickly, hope flaring for half a second. It is just another notification from the landlord's automated system, reminding her of what she already knows. She is behind. Again, the noodles swirl in the water, softening and breaking apart. Mara stirs them with a fork and blows out a slow breath. "Okay," she tells herself. "You can do one more Christmas. Just one more." Alone is better than pretending with people who do not really want you there. She believes it for exactly 3 seconds. Then, somewhere deep in the city, in a world she has never stepped into and never expects to, a man in a penthouse suite is standing in front of a decorated Christmas tree, staring at one empty space on the mantel where a stocking should be. And slowly, without knowing it yet, both of their lives are starting to turn toward each other. On the top floor of a glass high-rise across town, the city looks like a sea of blinking lights and falling snow. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of a spacious penthouse, you can see the glow of a giant Christmas tree reflected in the glass. Gold ribbons, white lights, glass ornaments that sparkle with every movement of the branches. But right now, Nicholas Hale does not see any of that. He stands very still, hands in his pockets, his jaw tight as he stares at the fireplace mantel. 5 red and white stockings hang there in a neat row. 3 are small, each one embroidered with a name in golden thread. Lily, Ruby, June. The 4th is larger, with his own name on it. Nick. The 5th hook on the mantel is empty. Nicholas knows exactly which stocking is missing. It is folded away in a box in the back of his closet, along with a handful of ornaments his wife bought years ago at a Christmas market in another city. He has taken that box down from the shelf more than once this week. He has opened it, touched the soft red fabric, the familiar stitched letters. Amelia. Every time, his chest tightens so hard it feels like his ribs are shrinking. Every time, he closes the box and puts it back. Tonight is no different. He looks at the space on the mantel for a long moment, then forces his eyes away. Behind him, the sound of small footsteps thumps down the hallway. "Daddy, are we going to start the movie?" Ruby calls, her voice full of the kind of excitement only an 8-year-old can sustain at the end of a long day. The cocoa is getting cold. Lily appears in the archway first, hugging a soft blanket to her chest. She is 10, long dark hair braided carefully, Amelia's eyes set in a face that has grown more serious since the accident. Ruby bounces beside her in bright reindeer pajamas, curls everywhere, one sock half off her heel. June peeks out from behind her sisters, clutching a stuffed bunny by one floppy ear. She is 6 and still half hides when she talks, like every word might be too loud. Nicholas pulls in a breath and turns to face them, pasting on a smile he has practiced in the mirror more times than he likes to admit. "I am coming," he says. Is the cocoa too sweet? Ruby grins. There is no such thing as too sweet. I added extra marshmallows for June. June nods seriously. They are melting, she whispers. Lily looks past him toward the mantel. Her gaze lingers on the empty hook, and her fingers tighten around the blanket. Nicholas sees it. He always sees it. He clears his throat. All right, he says gently. Movie time. Then bed. Santa does not visit children who stay up all night, remember? Ruby rolls her eyes dramatically, but there is a flicker of sadness there too. Daddy, she says as he follows them into the living room. What if Santa cannot find us? We moved last year. Nicholas ruffles her hair. Santa has very good maps, he answers. Besides, I left instructions with the building manager. Lily snorts softly at that, but the smile is small. They settle onto the oversized sectional couch. 3 small bodies tuck themselves around him without even thinking. June curls into his side. Ruby leans across his legs to reach the bowl of popcorn. Lily sits close enough that their shoulders touch, but her hands are busy straightening the edge of the blanket over everyone's laps. The movie starts, all bright colors and jingling bells and animated snowmen that never melt. The girls watch, but every few minutes their eyes drift away from the screen to the tree, to the gifts wrapped in shiny paper, to the mantel. Nicholas watches them instead of the movie. He studies the way Lily's mouth presses into a line when the cartoon family on the screen sits around their table, all together, laughing. He notices how Ruby sighs when the animated mom hugs her kids. He feels June's little fingers clench and unclench in the fabric of his sweater whenever someone says the word family. He feels it like a weight, like a quiet accusation. He tries to focus on the good. They are safe. They are warm. They have more than they will ever need. He has built an empire out of numbers and risks and sharp decisions. Yet there is one thing he has never been able to rebuild. The space that Amelia left behind still hangs in the air around them, like a shape no one wants to trace with their eyes. When the movie ends, the girls groan in protest, but they do not argue when he tells them it is time for bed. One by one, they hug him goodnight. Ruby's arms are fierce around his neck. June kisses his cheek so quickly it is almost a whisper. Lily lingers for half a second longer than usual. Dad, she says quietly, her voice almost lost in the hum of the dishwasher starting up in the kitchen. Yes. She glances toward the tree. If Santa does not bring everything we wrote, it is okay. You sure? He asks gently. She nods, then strong arms herself and adds, we already have the most important gifts. It should be enough. It almost is. But later, after the nanny has tucked them in and the hallway goes quiet, Nicholas wanders back to the living room. Alone now, he picks up a folded piece of paper that Lily left on the coffee table next to a plate of cookies. It is her Christmas list. As he reads down the neat little bullet points, his breath catches at the last line, written more softly than the rest. Maybe someone to eat Christmas dinner with us who is not just staff or family friends. Someone who stays. He presses his lips together, the words blurring for a second. Out beyond the window, snow keeps falling in slow, silent waves. Somewhere on the other side of that glittering city, a woman is eating instant noodles in a dim apartment, promising herself she can make it through one more lonely Christmas. Nicholas does not know her name yet. He does not know that his daughters will soon meet her before he does. All he knows right now is that the empty space in his home feels louder than ever, and for the first time in a long time, the thought crosses his mind like a fragile spark. Maybe this is the year something has to change. Snow keeps falling long after most of the city has gone inside. By 8:30, Mara has washed her bowl in the tiny sink and stacked it upside down to dry, even though there is not much to dry. The instant noodles sit heavy in her stomach, but at least it is something warm. The apartment feels smaller with every passing minute. The thin walls trap the sound of someone else's Christmas movie, someone else's family laughter. She stands in the middle of the room and looks around. The second-hand couch, the chipped coffee table, the single coat hanging on the back of a chair. For a moment, she feels like she is looking at a stranger's life, like she has just walked into a stage set after the actors have gone home. A restless energy curls under her skin. She cannot sit here and count the minutes until midnight. She grabs her backpack, checks that her keys are inside, and hesitates just long enough to slip the pale blue Christmas card into the inner pocket. She zips it closed and pulls on her coat, wrapping her scarf twice around her throat. Outside, The air bites at her cheeks. The sidewalk glistens with a thin layer of slush, and the streetlights turn every snowflake into a tiny falling star. Mara shoves her hands into her pockets and starts walking with no real destination in mind. Only the vague idea that it might hurt a little less to feel alone out here under the open sky than pressed up against four narrow walls. A few blocks away, she hears music first. A tinny speaker plays carols, slightly distorted, the familiar melody of Silent Night, floating over the hum of traffic. As she turns the corner, the source appears. A small Christmas market squeezed into a plaza between two office buildings. Strands of lights crisscross overhead, and a handful of wooden booths line the edges, their roofs dusted with snow. A vendor pours hot chocolate into paper cups. Another sells scarves and knitted hats. A charity table offers free cookies to anyone who will stop and listen to their pitch about a local food bank. Mara pauses at the edge of the plaza, taking it in. It is not the big famous market from the commercials, just a neighborhood event. But there is a warmth here that her apartment does not have. Even if most of that warmth is coming from a propane heater humming beside the cocoa stand. She moves closer, drawn by the smell of sugar and cinnamon. She does not have the money to buy anything, but no one has figured out how to charge for air yet. She closes her eyes for a second, letting the music and the voices swirl around her like a blanket. On the other side of town, in the Hale penthouse, Nicholas glances at the clock on the wall and feels that same restless pull. The girls are in their rooms, but he knows they are not asleep. Excitement buzzes too loud in a child's body on Christmas Eve. He walks down the hall, taps lightly on Lily's door, then on Ruby and June's. Three faces peek out almost at once, as if they have been waiting. "Get your coats," he says. "All of you. Boots, hats, everything." Ruby's eyes go wide. "Are we going somewhere?" "For a few minutes," Nicholas answers. "Only downstairs. There is a small market in the plaza. I thought we could see the lights before bed." June claps quietly, the stuffed bunny tucked under her arm. Lily's expression softens, the blanket of seriousness slipping just a little. "Really?" she asks. "Really," he says. "But only if everyone promises not to complain about being tired in the morning." 5 minutes later, they are in the elevator, bundled in winter coats over their pajamas, boots thumping softly against the floor. Lily leans her head against the glass panel as the city lights rise and fall outside. Ruby bounces on her heels, humming along to the faint music that seems to seep even into the elevator shaft. June holds firmly to Nicholas's hand with one small mitten, her bunny pressed to her chest with the other. The doors slide open to the lobby, and a blast of colder air greets them as they step out into the plaza. The market here is the same one Mara has just wandered into from the other side, but to the girls it feels like something magical that has sprung up just for them. Ruby gasps at the sight of a woman twisting balloons into reindeer shapes. Lily is distracted by a table of handmade ornaments. June's eyes go straight to the small cluster of wooden benches near the center, where a group of kids are sipping hot chocolate, their noses pink from the cold. "Stay where I can see you," Nicholas says, the automatic father sentence that comes out every time they are in public. He loosens his hold on June just enough for her to toddle forward a few steps, assuming she will stay close like she always does. For a while, everything is fine. He pays for 3 small cups of cocoa, smiles politely at a neighbor who recognizes him, listens with half an ear as Ruby launches into a detailed explanation of which balloon animal is clearly the superior one. Then he turns to hand June her cup and feels his stomach drop. She is not beside him. The spot where she was standing is empty. His eyes scan the crowd in an instant, the pleasant Christmas blur snapping into sharp focus. People move, laugh, gesture with paper cups in their hands. Snowflakes drift lazily down. June is nowhere in his immediate line of sight. Nicholas's pulse jumps. "June," he calls, trying to keep his voice calm, not wanting to alarm the other two. "June, honey, where did you go?" On the far side of the plaza, near the charity table, Mara is just turning away from a display of brochures when something small collides with her legs. She looks down and sees a little girl in a purple coat blinking up at her, eyes wide and brimming with tears, a stuffed bunny clutched in one mittened hand. "Hey," Mara says softly, steadying the child with gentle hands. "You okay?" The girl's lower lip trembles. I lost my dad," she whispers. And just like that, On a cold Christmas Eve under a net of borrowed lights, the path of a woman who has no one and the path of a man who has too much finally cross for the first time. For a second, Mara just looks at her. The little girl's cheeks are flushed from the cold, her brown eyes glossy. Snowflakes cling to the knit hat pulled down over her ears. She cannot be more than 6 years old. Mara feels something in her chest twist, a memory of a much smaller hand holding hers in a grocery store years ago, a voice saying, "Do not let go, okay?" She swallows and gently crouches down to the girl's level. "Hey," she repeats, softer this time. "Take a breath for me, all right? You are not alone. I am right here. What is your name?" The girl sniffs and drags the back of her mitten across her nose. "June," she whispers. "My name is June." Mara offers a small smile. "Hi, June. I am Mara." She keeps her voice calm, like she has heard social workers do at community centers. "Can you tell me what your dad looks like? What was he wearing?" June hiccups once, then answers with the serious focus only a scared child can have. "He is tall," she says. "He has dark hair and a gray coat. And my sisters were with us. But then there were too many people, and I was looking at the lights, and then," her voice wobbles. Mara nods, glancing around. It would be easy for a child to get lost in this, even though the market is not huge. People are moving in all directions, coats and hats, and scarves blurring together. The music shifts to a louder song, bells and cheerful lyrics that feel a little too bright for the way Mara's heart is pounding now. "Okay," she says. "We are going to fix this. I promise. Do you want to hold my hand while we look?" June hesitates only a second before slipping her mittened hand into Mara's. Her fingers are small but cling tightly, desperate for something solid to anchor to. Mara stands, keeping her other hand raised slightly in case they need to wave someone down. "We are going to find your dad," she says. "He is probably looking for you right now. Across the plaza, that is exactly what is happening." Nicholas moves through the crowd, his breath coming a little faster than the cold alone can explain. Lily and Ruby are on either side of him, their eyes wide now, all the sparkle of the market replaced by worry. "I told her to stay." "Close," Ruby says, guilt creeping into her voice. "She was right there, Daddy." "This is not your fault," Nicholas tells her firmly, scanning every small figure near him. "Do you hear me, Ruby? This is not your fault. We are going to find her." He catches sight of a security guard near the edge of the plaza and starts toward him, but then a flash of purple coat and a familiar stuffed bunny catch his eye. His whole body goes very still. June stands near the charity table, her hand in the hand of a woman he does not recognize. The woman is not bundled in expensive winter gear. Her coat is simple, a little too thin for this kind of cold. Her scarf is worn at the edges, but she is standing between June and the crowd like a shield. She is saying something down to the child, and whatever it is makes June's shoulders ease. Nicholas feels relief slam into him, so hard his knees almost buckle. "June!" His voice comes out louder than he intended. It slices through the carols and chatter. The little girl's head snaps up. "Daddy!" She lets go of Mara's hand and runs, boots slipping a little on the wet stone, but she makes it. She collides with Nicholas's legs, and he drops to his knees, arms wrapping around her with a force that is half hug, half an attempt to convince himself she is really there. For a moment, he cannot speak. He just presses his cheek to the top of her hat and closes his eyes. "Are you okay?" he manages finally, his voice rough. "Did anyone touch you? Are you hurt?" June shakes her head against his chest. "I got lost," she mumbles. "I am sorry, Daddy. I was looking at the lights, and then you were gone." "No," he says immediately, leaning back just enough to look into her face. "You do not ever have to apologize for getting scared. That is my job, remember? To keep you where I can see you." Her small hands twist in his coat. "I did not know where to go, but she helped me." June turns and points. Nicholas follows her finger and finally really looks at Mara. For a split second, something unspoken passes between them. She looks surprised, caught in the act of caring. Her hair is tucked back under a cheap hat, cheeks flushed red, dark eyes ringed with exhaustion, and something else he cannot name. She looks like she is about to slip away, like she is used to existing in the background, helping quietly, and then disappearing before anyone can ask her name. Nicholas stands, one hand still resting protectively on June's shoulder. "You found her," he says. "It is not a question. I heard her say she lost her dad." Mara replies, lifting one shoulder in a small shrug. I know what it feels like to not know where your people are. I just stayed with her until we could spot you. Nicholas hears the wording, the way she says, your people, and not, your family, and wonders briefly what her story is. But he has been raised in boardrooms and charity galas where people often do good things because there is a camera or a check waiting. There is none of that here. Just a woman in a thin coat on Christmas Eve, kneeling in the slush for a stranger's child. Thank you, he says, and the words feel too small. Really, I do not know how to. He trails off, at a rare loss. Lily and Ruby have caught up now. Ruby throws her arms around June with a dramatic groan of relief. Lily's eyes, always observant, flick from June to Mara to her father's face. You helped my sister, Lily says. There is a quiet seriousness in her tone. Mara offers her a real smile, the kind she has not felt on her own face in a long time. She was very brave, she answers. She told me your dad would come. She just needed someone to stand with her until you did. June nods and squeezes Mara's hand one more time, as if confirming this. Nicholas notices the way Mara's fingers linger in that little girl's grip, like letting go aches more than it should. He clears his throat. At least let me buy you a hot chocolate, he says. It is the least I can do after you saved me from the worst Christmas story I could imagine. Mara almost laughs at that, a short sound that dies quickly. She shakes her head. You do not have to, she says. Really, it is fine. I was just in the right place at the right time. The girls look at her like she has said something completely backward. To them, she is clearly the right person, not just the right place. Nicholas hesitates. He does not want to push. He knows there is a line between gratitude and obligation, and he has crossed it himself before in other ways. So instead of insisting, he does something else. Then maybe we can just say thank you properly, he offers. My name is Nicholas. These are my daughters, Lily, Ruby, and June. We are very, very glad you were here tonight, Mara. Hearing her own name spoken out loud in this bright, warm space is strangely disarming. Mara blinks, the scene blurring for a heartbeat. She is not used to being introduced, to being folded into anyone's moment like that. You are welcome, she says quietly. It is such a simple phrase, but as she says it, the smallest spark lights in the empty place inside her. She does not know it yet, but this is the first thread of something new tying itself between her and this little cluster of people under the Christmas lights. For a moment after that, they all simply stand there, 5 strangers who suddenly do not feel entirely like strangers anymore, framed by twinkling lights and drifting snow. Then Ruby, who has never been good at leaving any silence alone, tilts her head and looks from Mara to the cocoa stand. If she does not want hot chocolate as a thank you, she says slowly, maybe she could just drink hot chocolate near us. That is not the same thing, right? Lily gives her sister a look that says she knows exactly what Ruby is doing but is not going to stop her. June just nods eagerly, still clutching her bunny. Mara's first instinct is to back away. This is not her world. These people, with their matching scarves and easy way of standing close, belong together. She is just passing through. It is really all right, she starts, but then June tugs gently on her coat sleeve. Please, the little girl says, her voice small but clear. It is very cold, and you help me. You should be warm too. The words land in a place Mara thought had gone numb. For a second, she cannot answer. She looks at Nicholas, half expecting him to gently steer his daughter away, to apologize for the imposition. Instead, he only nods once, his expression open, no pressure in it. You would be doing me a favor, he says quietly. I promise you my daughter will not stop talking about you if we do not at least sit down for a few minutes. There is a tiny ripple of laughter around them, and something in Mara gives in. All right, she says. Just for a little bit. They move as a loose cluster toward a nearby bench. Nicholas buys another cocoa and hands it to her without ceremony. Like this is a normal thing they do every night. Invite strangers into their circle. The paper cup is almost too hot through her gloves, and the sweetness of the first sip hits her unexpectedly hard. She cannot remember the last time she had real hot chocolate instead of instant cocoa powder and tap water. The girls talk enough to fill any possible awkward holes. Ruby launches into a detailed retelling of the movie they just watched, complete with exaggerated impressions of the cartoon snowman. June adds corrections in a solemn little voice whenever Ruby gets a detail wrong. Lily listens more than she speaks, but when Mara glances her way, She finds the older girl watching her with a measuring sort of kindness, as if she is trying to fit Mara into a puzzle she has been holding for a long time. Do you live nearby? Lily asks finally, not rudely, just curious. Mara takes a breath. A few blocks that way, she answers, nodding toward the row of older brick buildings beyond the plaza. It is nothing fancy. Ours is up there, Ruby says, pointing toward the glass tower that rises above them. On the top, Daddy says we can see the whole city when it is not snowing. Mara follows the direction of her finger, eyes climbing all that gleaming glass and steel. For a split second, she pictures what it must look like inside, with the big tree and the stockings and the kind of quiet that probably feels very different from the quiet in her apartment. It sounds beautiful, she says. Nicholas watches her as she says it. The way her gaze lingers on the building and then drops quickly, like she is afraid of looking like she wants something she is not allowed to want. He clears his throat. We did not mean to keep you, he says. I am sure you have somewhere to be. People waiting. The words slip out before he can stop them, more habit than truth. Most adults have someone waiting for them on Christmas Eve. Mara feels the question underneath and looks down at the swirling chocolate in her cup. The truth presses at the back of her tongue. No one is waiting. There is no one at all. For a heartbeat, she considers lying to make everyone more comfortable. But then she remembers June's little hand in hers, the way these girls have pulled her into their space without even asking who she is. She chooses honesty instead. It is just me, she says quietly. I'm not really heading anywhere. Walking helps when the walls feel too close, you know? The girls do not fully understand, but Nicholas does. He sees the way her shoulders fold in a little as she says it, the way her mouth tries to form a smile and almost makes it. He thinks of Lily's wish on the paper in his pocket, the one about having someone at dinner who is not just staff or family friends. Before he can say anything, the wind gusts harder, sending a spray of snow sideways. June shivers, and Mara reacts without thinking, setting her cocoa down to pull the little girl's scarf up tighter around her chin. There, she murmurs. You need to keep this covered if you do not want a sore throat tomorrow. She tucks a loose strand of hair back under June's hat with a care that is almost instinct. Nicholas sees his daughter lean into that touch like a plant bending toward sunlight. It does something to him he does not have a name for. We should get them upstairs, he says after a moment, his voice more reluctant than he would like to admit. Santa has a very strict schedule. Ruby groans dramatically again, but she does not argue. The girls stand, and June immediately turns to Mara, throwing her arms around the older woman's waist in a quick, fierce hug. It catches Mara completely off guard. Her breath hitches as she wraps her arms around the child in return, feeling how small she is, how real. Thank you for finding me, June says into her coat. Thank you for being here. Mara blinks hard against the sting in her eyes. Thank you for letting me, she answers. Lily and Ruby offer their own smaller goodbyes, shy waves and promises that if they ever see her again, Ruby will introduce her to the balloon reindeer. Nicholas steps closer, snow catching in his dark hair. Mara, he says, and she looks up. I know you did not do this to be repaid. But if you ever need anything, if you ever find that walking is not enough on nights like this, there are people in this city who owe you more than a cup of hot chocolate. He pulls a simple white business card from his coat pocket and holds it out, almost apologetic. It is the same kind of card that has closed deals worth millions, but this feels like a different sort of offer. She hesitates, then takes it. The name printed there means nothing to her yet. Nicholas Hale. Hale Industries. A number. An email. I do not want to make things weird, she says slowly. I am not good at this. She waves the card lightly. I understand, he replies. There is no obligation. I just want you to have one more option than you had this morning. That is all. She nods, slipping the card into the inner pocket of her backpack, right beside the pale blue Christmas card addressed to the family she does not have yet. The irony is not lost on her. By the time she looks up again, the girls are already tugging their father toward the elevator entrance, calling out about cookies and carrots they still have to leave for Santa. Nicholas gives her one last nod, something unreadable in his eyes. Merry Christmas, Mara, he says. The words have never sounded quite like that in her ears before, like they might actually belong to her too. Merry Christmas, she answers, and as she turns to walk back through the softly falling snow, her fingers brush the edge of the business card in her pocket and the edge of the letter to her future family at the same time. For the first time in a very long while, the night feels a little less empty. On Christmas morning, the city wakes up slow under a blanket of fresh snow. In Mara's apartment, the light that filters through the thin curtains is pale and cold. There is no smell of cinnamon, no rustle of wrapping paper, no squeals from excited children. Just the low buzz of the old refrigerator and the distant echo of someone else's television somewhere down the hall. Mara blinks awake on the couch, her neck stiff from the angle she fell asleep in. For a moment she is disoriented, caught between the warmth of a dream where a little girl hugged her and the reality of the draft that slips under her front door. Then she remembers the market, the cocoa, June's arms around her waist, and the man with snow in his hair who said, "Merry Christmas, Mara," like her name meant something. Her hand moves almost on its own to the inside pocket of her backpack. Her fingers brush over two edges at once. The smooth cardstock of the business card. The softer, worn paper of the pale blue Christmas card she wrote to a family that did not exist. She pulls them both out and lays them on the coffee table side by side. Nicholas Hale. Hale Industries. The black letters look sharp and out of place against the chipped wood. People like that do not call people like me, she tells herself quietly. That was a nice moment. A one-time thing. Still, she does not throw the card away. She slides it carefully inside the Christmas card, like she is tucking one possibility into another, then puts them both back in her bag. Across town, the Hale penthouse is already alive. The living room looks like a snow globe someone shook too hard. Wrapping paper covers the floor, bows cling to socks and hair, and the girls' voices overlap as they compare gifts. June sits in the middle of it all with a new set of colored pencils in her lap and a sketchbook propped against her knees. She is drawing something with careful strokes, tongue caught between her teeth. Ruby has already put on half of her new clothes at once, layers of patterns that should not work together but somehow do on her. Lily sits a little apart, leaning against the arm of the couch with a book in her hand, but her eyes keep drifting back to her sisters and their father. Nicholas watches them, a mug of coffee warming his hands. On the mantel behind him, the 4 stockings hang a little deflated now that their secrets are out. The 5th hook is still empty, but the ache of it feels different this morning. Less like a raw wound, more like a quiet question. "Daddy," Ruby says suddenly, dropping down onto the rug in front of him, her new slippers sliding on the wood. "I know you said the market was just a little thing, but it was my favorite present." June nods vigorously, pressing her drawing flat so the pencil lines do not smudge. "Mine too," she says. Lily closes her book. "She was very kind," she adds. Nicholas knows exactly who they mean. The woman whose name he cannot stop replaying in his mind. "Mara. She helped me when I was scared," June says, her voice turning serious. "And she smelled like cocoa and snow." Ruby tilts her head. "Do you think she is alone today?" she asks, the words innocent and blunt. She said she did not have anywhere to go last night. The question hits Nicholas harder than he expects. He thinks of the way Mara's eyes dropped when she admitted that walking was easier than staying inside 4 walls. He takes a slow breath and sets his mug down. "A lot of people are alone on Christmas," he says carefully. "That is why some places do special meals and things. So they have somewhere to be." Lily watches him closely. "Some places," she repeats. "Like your community center?" Nicholas runs a hand over his jaw. The Hale Foundation does sponsor a community center and a holiday lunch, the one whose flyers had been on the charity table in the plaza. He usually makes an appearance there every year, shakes some hands, makes a polite speech, then leaves before things can feel too personal. "Yes," he admits. "Like the center." Ruby brightens immediately. "Can we go?" she asks. "We could bring toys we do not use anymore. And June could draw cards. And maybe—" She trails off, but everyone knows where that thought is headed. Maybe Mara will be there. Nicholas hesitates for a heartbeat and then realizes there is only one answer he can live with. "All right," he says. "We will go. We will help serve, not just drop things off. If we're going to spend Christmas together, we can spend part of it making sure other people have a Christmas too." Lily's mouth softens into a real smile. June claps her hands, then immediately bends over her drawing again, adding more color. On the page, a tall man, 3 little girls, and a woman with a scarf around her neck stand under strings of lights, all holding cups of cocoa. The lines are a little wobbly, but the feeling is clear. Back in her apartment, Mara pulls on her boots and the same coat from the night before. She has nowhere special to go, but the memory of the charity table at the market tugs at her. There had been a sign there about a holiday lunch at a community center only a few blocks away. No one turned away. It had said in big, hopeful letters. She told herself she would not go as someone seeking a free meal. She would go as someone who could help. It is easier to receive kindness when you are also giving something back. She grabs her backpack, making sure the cards are inside, grabs her thin gloves, and steps out into the hallway. As she locks the door, the landlord's latest notice flutters against the frame, half loose from where someone pushed it under. She smooths it out, reads the words past due and final one more time, then folds it and slides it into her pocket with a sigh. One thing at a time, she whispers. First, make it through today. A short bus ride and a walk later, she is standing in front of a brick building with a banner stretched across the entrance. Hale Community Center Holiday Lunch, it reads. Volunteers bustle in and out, carrying trays and bags, cheeks pink from the cold. Mara hesitates on the sidewalk, her breath turning white in the air. She could turn around. No one here knows her name. No one expects her. Then she remembers June's small voice saying, "You should be warm too," and Nicholas's quiet promise that she deserved at least one more option than she had that morning. She squares her shoulders and steps toward the door, not knowing that inside, 3 little girls are already scanning every new face, hoping to see the woman who held their sister's hand in the snow. Inside the Hale Community Center, the air smells like roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, and cinnamon. The gymnasium has been transformed with long folding tables covered in red and white plastic cloths, strings of paper snowflakes hanging from the basketball hoops, and a tree in the corner decorated with mismatched ornaments that were clearly donated over many years. Volunteers move in controlled chaos, refilling trays, wiping spills, and guiding people to open seats. At one end of the room, a hand-painted sign reads, "Welcome. You belong here." Mara stops just inside the doorway, her fingers tightening around the strap of her backpack. For a second, the noise and movement feel like too much. Laughter, clinking cutlery, the squeak of sneakers on the floor. Her brain, used to quiet, wants to shut down. But then she sees a woman near the kitchen window tying an apron around her waist while still balancing a tray of bread rolls. An instinct kicks in. Work first, panic later. She makes her way toward the nearest table where a volunteer coordinator in a green sweater is crossing names off a list. "Excuse me," Mara says, her voice a little hoarse. "I saw the sign about the holiday lunch. I was wondering if you still need help." The coordinator looks up, and her tired face brightens. "We always need help," she says. "Can you carry trays and smile at people?" "I can try," Mara answers. That is enough. Within minutes, she has an apron tied around her waist and a stack of plates in her hands. She falls into the rhythm of serving without thinking about it too much. "Happy holidays," she says as she places turkey on plates. "Would you like gravy?" Some people meet her eyes and ask how her day is. Some mumble thanks without looking up. Some tell her stories she did not ask for about husbands overseas, jobs that disappeared, apartments that flooded. She listens, nods, and keeps moving. On the other side of the room, the doors open again and a burst of cold air follows 3 small figures rushing in, their boots squeaking. "Do you see her?" Ruby whispers, bouncing on her toes as she scans the crowd. "What if she is already here and we miss her?" June clutches her sketchbook to her chest, the drawing from the night before carefully tucked inside. Lily stands a little taller than her sisters, but her eyes are just as hopeful as they sweep the room. Behind them, Nicholas speaks with the center's director, an older man with kind eyes and a clipboard. "Thank you for coming." In person, the director says. "The donation keeps us going, but seeing the girls here, helping, that matters too." Nicholas nods, half listening. His attention is split between the logistics and the way his daughters are clearly searching for someone. He knows exactly who. He tells himself that even if they do not find Mara, this is still the right place for them to be today. He tells himself that the odd tightness in his chest when he thinks of her alone in that small apartment is just seasonal sentimentality. Then, as he looks past the director's shoulder, he sees a familiar figure at the serving line. Mara, hair pulled back, apron on, carefully placing bread onto plates. She is not sitting at a table being served. She is working, moving with that quiet efficiency of someone who has done this kind of thing before. He feels something inside him settle and shift at the same time. Dad, Lily breathes, following his gaze. Is that? It is her, Ruby squeals, already taking a step forward. Nicholas puts a gentle hand on her shoulder. Walk, he reminds her. No running with gravy on the floor. We do not need a repeat of last year's slip and slide. Mara is reaching for another tray when she hears a small voice say her name. Mara. She turns, surprised, and there they are, 3 sets of eyes beaming up at her like she is the person they have been hoping to find all day. Her chest tightens in a way that has nothing to do with anxiety this time. You came, June says, as if she had never doubted it, even though Mara herself almost did. You are here, Ruby corrects, as if that is the more important fact. You are helping. Lily just smiles, and in her smile there is something steady and older than her years, a kind of relief. I thought I might be useful, Mara says, suddenly aware of the flower on her hands and the loose thread on her sleeve. There was a sign, and I like the idea of a place that says no one is turned away. We saved you a seat, June blurts, then bites her lip. If you want it, we can ask the lady in charge to let you sit with us when you take a break. Before Mara can answer, another voice cuts in, smooth and cool. Nicholas, it says. I did not realize you were mixing with the volunteers today. I thought you preferred the boardroom to the buffet line. A woman in a tailored winter coat and expensive boots approaches, her perfume sharp and out of place in the warm, crowded room. This is Elaine, a longtime board member and distant cousin by marriage, the kind of person who always seems to be around at formal events. Nicholas straightens slightly, his expression tightening. Elaine, he says, we are here as guests and helpers, just like everyone else. Elaine's gaze flicks over the girls fondly, then lands on Mara, taking in the apron, the worn coat hung on the back of a chair, the way she stands close to the children. Her smile does not reach her eyes. And who is this? She asks, the sweetness in her tone edged with something sharp. A new hire? I did not think the staff uniform policy included sentimental attachments to donors' children. Mara feels the words like a slap. Heat rushes up her neck. She suddenly becomes acutely aware of every frayed edge of her life, on full display under the fluorescent lights. She opens her mouth to explain that she is just a volunteer who happened to run into them again, that there is nothing inappropriate happening here, but the sentence tangles on her tongue. Before she can find the right words, Nicholas speaks, his voice low and firm. Elaine, he says, a warning threaded through the name. The girls stiffen, sensing the shift. Lily's eyes flash. Ruby scowls. June presses closer to Mara's side, small fingers curling into the fabric of her apron. In that instant, Mara has a choice. She can stay and risk becoming a point of gossip in a world that is not hers, or she can do what she has always done when things get too complicated. She can disappear. The old instinct wins. It is all right, she says quickly, stepping slightly away from the girls. I was just finishing up my shift anyway. It looks like you have plenty of help. She manages a smile that feels like it might crack. It was good to see you all again. I am glad you made it here. Nicholas reaches out, as if to stop her, but another volunteer calls her name from the kitchen window at that exact moment, asking for someone to carry out more trays. The interruption is just enough cover for her to slip away, apron strings fluttering behind her as she moves back into the crowd. The girls watch her go, confusion and hurt mixing on their faces. Nicholas turns to Elaine, his jaw set. He has spent years avoiding open conflict at family functions for the sake of peace. But as he looks at his daughters and the empty space where Mara stood, he feels something inside him harden into resolve. This, he decides, will be different. Elaine is still talking, some comment about public image and blurred boundaries, when Nicholas finally cuts her off. His voice is calm, but there is steel under it that makes even the clatter in the kitchen seem to quiet for a heartbeat. That woman, he says, nodding toward the space where Mara just stood, helped my daughter in the middle of a crowded plaza when no one else noticed she was missing. She volunteered to serve here on a day when most people are home on their couches. If you cannot see the value in that, Elaine, then perhaps the person with the blurred perspective is not her. Elaine blinks, taken aback by the directness. She is used to Nicholas smoothing things over, used to him choosing diplomacy over confrontation. Before she can formulate a response, Lily steps forward, chin lifted. Mara is our friend, she says, her young voice steady. She is kind, and she listened to us like we mattered. You made her feel like she did something wrong when all she did was help us. Ruby nods vigorously, curls bouncing. She is not staff, she adds. She is a hero. She found June. June clutches her bunny and looks up at Elaine with wide eyes. She smelled like cocoa and snow. She whispers again, as if that is the most important detail, and somehow, to a 6-year-old, it is. Elaine shifts uncomfortably under 3 pairs of accusing eyes and 1 very cold adult stare. I did not mean to cause offense, she says finally, but the damage is done. Nicholas turns away from her, his focus already somewhere else. I need to fix this, he tells his daughters quietly. Stay with Mr. Daniels for a minute and keep helping. I will be right back. He moves toward the kitchen, where he last saw Mara disappear. Behind the serving window, steam rises from industrial pans and volunteers weave around one another. He scans faces, searching for dark hair, tired eyes, that familiar thin coat hung on a hook. She is not there. The woman who was helping with the bread. He asks one of the coordinators. Mara, did she leave? The coordinator frowns in thought. She finished her shift early, the woman says. Said she needed to get back before the buses ran on a holiday schedule. Quiet girl. Hard worker. She signed in on the volunteer sheet if you need her name. Nicholas already knows her name, but that sheet gives him something else. An address. He hesitates, aware of the line between concern and intrusion, then thinks about the landlord notice she smoothed in her doorway, the way she flinched when Elaine spoke, and the way his daughters lit up when they saw her. He makes a decision. A short while later, after the last plates are cleared and the final thank yous are said, the girls follow him out into the cold afternoon light. Their arms are a little tired from carrying trays, their cheeks flushed from exertion and emotion. Did you find her? Ruby asks immediately. Is she coming back? Nicholas looks down at them, his breath forming small clouds. She went home, he says, but only because someone made her feel unwelcome when she was doing nothing wrong. I do not want that to be the last message she gets from this day. Lily studies his face. What are you going to do? She asks. He pulls the folded volunteer sheet from his coat pocket, the line with Mara Ellis and an address circled in blue ink. I am going to apologize properly, he answers. Not just with words, but with an invitation. We have an empty chair at our table. I am tired of walking around it. The girls exchange a look, a wordless burst of hope passing between them. 15 minutes and 1 short drive later, they are standing in the hallway of an aging brick building, the same one where Mara traced fatigue into the paint the night before. Nicholas checks the number on the paper against the door in front of him, then raises his hand and knocks. On the other side, Mara hears it and freezes. She is in the middle of untying her boots, apron from the center already in the sink, soaking in soapy water. The day has left her both drained and oddly full, like someone poured too many unfamiliar feelings into a container that was not built for it. The knock comes again, steady but not impatient. For a second, a wild thought crosses her mind that it could be the landlord, ready to demand what she does not have. She squares her shoulders and opens the door anyway. What she sees in the hallway steals the words from her mouth. Nicholas stands there, hair damp with melted snow, flanked by 3 little girls in colorful hats and boots. Their arms are full of something that looks and smells like Christmas dinner packed into insulated containers. June holds her sketchbook pressed against her chest. Lily has a small tin of cookies. Ruby clutches a folded paper hat from the community center. They all look up at Mara like they are not entirely sure what to say first. Nicholas clears his throat. Before you say anything, he begins. I need to tell you that what happened at the center was not your fault. You did nothing wrong. You have every right to stand wherever my daughters feel safe, and if anyone in my orbit makes you feel less than that, it is on me to correct it. I am sorry I did not do it fast enough. Mara stands there, hand on the edge of the door, heart pounding. No one has ever brought an apology to her doorstep before, wrapped in the smell of turkey and cinnamon. Lily steps forward, voice softer. We have too much food, she says. And an empty chair. It has been empty for a long time. Ruby nods, words tumbling over each other. So we thought maybe, if you wanted to, you could sit in it this year. Just for tonight. Or longer. If you like us. June lifts her sketchbook with both hands, opening it to the drawing she finished that morning. For figures under lights. A man, 3 girls, and a woman with a scarf. We already drew you in, she whispers. Will you join us, Mara? The question hangs in the hallway like a soft, shining thing. Mara feels the edges of the pale blue Christmas card pressing against her heart from where it rests in her backpack. On the chair behind her. To the family I do not have yet, she wrote. Maybe you do not exist. But if you do. She looks at Nicholas, at the honest nervousness in his eyes, at the hope on 3 small faces, at the containers of food that promise warmth in more ways than one. For the first time in years, she lets herself consider that the letter she wrote into the void might have been answered in a way she never expected. For a long moment, Mara just stands there with her hand on the door, the hallway light haloing the 4 of them in a way that feels almost unreal. She could say no. It would be safer. Safer to stay in the life she knows, with its predictable loneliness and its walls she built herself. But then June's question echoes again, small and clear. Will you join us, Mara? The words hit the exact spot that has ached on every Christmas Eve since the fire. She exhales slowly, like she is letting go of 10 winters at once. Give me 1 second, she says, her voice not quite steady. She steps back into the apartment, leaving the door open. Nicholas holds his breath in the hall, heart thudding harder than any boardroom deal has ever made it beat. The girls crane their necks to peek in. They see the worn couch, the tiny kitchen, the backpack on the chair with its strap frayed at the edge. Not much else. No tree. No lights. No stockings. Just the shape of a life held together by willpower and cheap rent. Mara crosses the room and picks up her backpack. For a second she hesitates, then unzips the inner pocket and slides the pale blue Christmas card out. She opens it, eyes skimming the words she already knows by heart. To the family I do not have yet. Her finger rests on the last line. Maybe someday we will both find our way home. She looks up at the open door, where warm light spills in from the hallway, and 3 small faces hover like an answer. Very gently, she folds the card and slips it into her coat pocket, close to her heart. Then she turns off the lamp, closes the apartment door behind her, and steps fully into the corridor where the Hales are waiting. I would like to join you, she says simply. June beams so hard her cheeks scrunch up. Ruby does a little victory spin, nearly sloshing gravy in the container until Nicholas steadies it with a laugh. Lily lets out a breath she did not realize she was holding and gives Mara the kind of smile that says, You chose us. We will not waste that. The ride up the elevator feels surreal. Mara watches the numbers climb, fingers curled around the strap of her bag. Nicholas stands beside her, close enough that she can feel the quiet strength in his presence, but not so close that it feels like pressure. The girls chatter about the view, about the stockings, about the silly Christmas crowns they kept from last year. By the time the doors slide open into the penthouse, Mara's heart is pounding. But the panic that usually comes with new spaces is softer, blunted by the 3 sets of hands that keep reaching back for her without thinking. The tree is even more beautiful up close, the white lights casting everything in a warm glow. The dining table is set with real china and cloth napkins, candles flickering down the center. 4 chairs have been pulled out. One at the end has a cushion that looks slightly more worn, like someone sits there every day. Next to it, one chair has a different plate, floral and a little chipped, as if it was added at the last minute. On the mantel, 4 stockings hang where Mara saw them in her mind. But now there is a 5th as well. Smaller, with no name stitched on it yet. Just blank red fabric, waiting. Nicholas follows her gaze. We did not have time to get it embroidered, he says. But the hook has been there for 3 years. I think it is about time it held something again, do you not? Mara swallows, throat tight. You did not need to do all this for me, she murmurs. You barely know me. Lily steps in before Nicholas can answer. We know enough, she says. We know you came back today, just to help. We know you did not run away when June cried. We know you did not take the easy kind of help and disappear. That is more than we know about a lot of people. Ruby nods. And you drink cocoa the right way, she adds, with your eyes closed for the first sip. June giggles and slips her hand into Mara's. And you tuck scarves right, she says. That is important. They take their seats. Nicholas sets the containers on the counter and begins to plate the food. There is more than enough to go around. At first the conversation is a little tentative. Nicholas asks Mara about the community center. She tells him about the people she met, the stories they told. Little by little, Pieces of her own story slip out between passing the potatoes and asking for more gravy. She talks about the fire without giving all the details, about the job she has worked, about the way Christmas has felt like a ghost ever since. No one looks away. No one pities her out loud. They just listen, really listen, like her words are a gift and not a burden. At one point, Nicholas reaches for the bowl at the same time she does, their hands brushing. The contact is brief, but there is a warmth there that has nothing to do with the food. Their eyes meet for a second, and in that look is an understanding that this is not just about filling a chair for one night. After dinner, the girls insist on showing Mara the view from the big window. The city stretches out below them, lights twinkling, snow still falling in soft curtains. It is pretty, Mara says, forehead resting lightly against the cool glass. I have walked these streets for years and never seen it quite like this. Nicholas stands a little behind her, hands in his pockets. Sometimes it is easier to see the whole picture from a different vantage point, he says gently. That is true for cities. And for lives. She turns to look at him, curiosity in her eyes. He hesitates, then continues. I run a foundation, he admits. We have been trying to redesign our outreach programs. We need people who do not just understand the numbers. We need people who understand what it feels like on the ground. People like you. She blinks. Are you offering me a job at your dinner table? She asks, half teasing, half afraid to believe it. He smiles, that small, genuine curve of his mouth that she first saw under the market lights. I am offering you a conversation, he says, about work, about what you need, about what we might be able to build together. No pressure tonight. Tonight is just about this, about you not being alone for Christmas. She lets the idea sit between them like another candle on the table, small but bright. Later, when the girls are finally tucked into bed, full of food and exhausted from excitement, Mara stands by the door with her backpack on her shoulder. She does not want to overstay. Old habits tell her to slip out before anyone has a chance to change their mind. Nicholas walks her to the threshold. Snow has stopped for the moment, the night outside still and clear. Thank you for coming, he says. They have not stopped smiling since you opened your door. You are the one who knocked, she points out softly. Most people do not. He studies her for a second, then makes a quiet choice. Mara, he says, reaching into his pocket. He takes out something small and closes her hand around it. It is not the business card. It is a simple brass key on a plain ring. This is not a demand, he says quickly. It is not even a request. It is a symbol, a reminder that there is at least one place in this city where the door will open if you knock. For dinner, for a conversation, for anything. Whether that turns into a job, or more, or just a weird tradition where you come over and correct my scarf tying every December, we can decide together. At your pace. She looks down at the key, then back up at him, emotion shining unshed in her eyes. You barely know me, she repeats, but this time there is wonder in it, not objection. I know enough, he says. Kindness in a storm. Steady hands in a crisis. The courage to show up twice. That is a pretty good start. She closes her fingers around the key and feels its solid weight. After a heartbeat, she leans forward and presses a light, grateful kiss to his cheek. It is quick and gentle, but it carries every thank you she cannot seem to fit into words. Merry Christmas, Nicholas, she whispers. He smiles, a little stunned, a little hopeful. Merry Christmas, Mara. When she steps out into the hallway, the key is warm in her palm. The pale blue card a soft rectangle against her chest. She realizes something as she walks toward the elevator. For the first time in years, the word home does not feel like a ghost or a place that burned down. It feels like a direction she is finally allowed to move in again. And somewhere behind her, in a penthouse filled with soft snores and cooling dishes, a billionaire with 3 daughters looks at a blank red stocking on his mantle and knows it will not stay nameless for long. She had no family for Christmas, not for a very long time, until a billionaire and his daughters asked, "Will you join us?" And she found the courage to say yes. And sometimes, that is how families are born, not from shared blood, but from the moment someone opens a door and means it when they say, "You belong here."